tzimtzum never really happened as far as Hashem is concerned.
Yeah, is everyone following that little quick recap?
What? The what?
What we're basically saying is that we get to a point where we climb up to all the highest worlds, we get to Malchus of Atzilus, and that's the source of everything, and then we realize that that itself is just a ray of the Shekhinah, and Hashem is the same before He created the world and after He created the world, which is an important statement, meaning that this experience of that there even can be something called a ray is only relevant when the source of the ray is in one place and the ray is in another place, where it's like separate from its source, and that's Malchus of Atzilus. But that only happens in the perception of the ray. It doesn't happen in the perception of Hashem. So basically what it means Hashem is the same as before and after, it means that even though we perceive all the light's been removed and suddenly our existence has become independent, that never happened as far as Hashem is concerned, and therefore the real reality is that never happened. And therefore you cease to exist. Bittul Metzias.
Right.
So this is the meditation of before you were busy worrying about your taxes, and now you're Bittul Metzias. That's kind of the idea. It's like you come away from the darkness where you've been feeling all the separateness, and it causes you to meditate and come to this realization. And it creates a great yearning to get out of the darkness and the physical world and cling to the truth, where you're going to say, Mi li b'shamayim be'imcha lo chafatzti. Who remembers what that means? Mi li b'shamayim.
Imcha is the angels.
No.
No.
Well, I mean, sort of, maybe. But what does the word imcha? What does it mean? Mi li b'shamayim.
Who is it in heaven that is not you, Hashem?
Who do I have in the heavens?
Right,
in other words, who do I have to depend on over there? That's not my spot. No. And then what does it mean? Ve'imcha lo chafatzti.
I only want you, kind of.
What do the words literally mean?
Ve'imcha.
There was no one but you? No one like you?
Imcha means what?
With you.
With you.
Yeah.
Lo chafatzti.
No one to consort to.
What does it mean, lo chafatzti?
I don't want.
I don't want. So with you I don't want means what?
The angels.
Kind of, yeah. Anything that's merely with you, i.e. not you alone,
right.
I don't want that. So it's basically saying like all the levels, even the highest and the highest of levels, they're all coming from Malchus of Atzilus. They're all a ray. As high as it is and as wondrous it is, and the tzaddikim are going to sit in Gan Eden and love that. It's baloney, basically. It's not the real deal. It's like nothing compared to where it comes from. So you actually get to the feeling that you don't want any of this, which means you don't want even the Gan Eden Atachton, you don't even want the Gan Eden Elyon. Think like the reward, so to speak, of all the great lights. It's still a self.
So what is with you?
Lo imcha, lo chafatzti. With you I don't want. Shemra, yeah, okay. Shehem rak bechinas ziva ara bilvad. All of that is merely a ray. I'm on like 15 lines down. We did this just yesterday. Just reviewing a bit. K'mayim Razal tzaddikim yoshvin benenim miziva shechina. As the sages said, the tzaddikim sit there and benefit from merely a ray of the shechina.
Right.
But rather, ki'im ledafka bo yisparach. What I want now is to cling to you, to join into the mehuso va'atzmuso, your very essence, blessed be He. And that's called in the Zohar, ishtaba de begufa da malka. It's called hugging the body of the king, as opposed to like the speech of the king, like we said it yesterday. And this is called, this level of ava is called tshuva, because it's basically, it's greater power. Bechela yeser, it has more strength. Chela is strength, yeser is more, like yoter, Aramaic. And because tshuva has more strength, sheba dafka mitoch hachoshech, because it comes from the darkness. In other words, you're rushing to get out of there, you're jumping to release yourself from the darkness. So you wouldn't have that type of passion had it not been for getting to the bottom of this ray. Because the whole day long you were busy in physicality and the hevle olam, the vanities of the world. And then this is where we left off. Lefisha yisruna or hu mitocha choshech dafka. And again, returning to this line, because the advantage of light is specifically from darkness. Meaning to say that you only have this passion because you are just juxtaposing it to feeling totally disconnected and like hopeless in a world of darkness, and therefore you really appreciate godliness.
How does a person that is not Bal Tshuva at all understand this phrase?
Good question.
Because, I mean, it has nothing to do with Baal Tshuva per se. It has to do with being stuck into a physical existence.
Right.
That sometime during your physical existence, you're always going to wind. It does not mean you have to do sins. It means you
No,
go and.
Like I mean, a person who has been basically never went to like a non-Jewish high school, or like a Jewish high school. He was just like in yeshiva all his life. So here in Israel, like in Mea Sharim, you know what I mean? Like they were surrounded by like, you know.
Yes and no. They don't go to work and sell diamonds.
Well, until they're older though. But if a person is like he's like 20 years old and never did work,
They don't go to the schoolhouse and get into a game with their friends, and
Right,
one of their
guess.
friends hurts their feelings, and they go crying to mommy. That never happens to them either.
Right, I guess.
So they're always connected to Hashem like Mama Tzadikim.
Right,
Never.
no, so they also have like eating like crazy, eating problems and like.
Yeah, everything. I mean, in other words, the point is that darkness is immediately brought to every soul by the very nature of being in a physical body.
Right.
You have physical needs, you have physical problems, you have physical. So you're detached from the reality of the truth. So that's why I said Baal Tshuva is a relative term. It doesn't mean necessarily from sins. It just means from you're returning from a place of being disconnected.
Right, exactly.
What were we going to say, Baruch? It's okay.
Yeah.
So, okay. B'nikra avazu b'chines b'chol miodecha. This type of love, which is tshuva, is called b'chol miodecha.
Oh wow.
Right, so you get to b'chol levavecha, b'chol nafshecha, the three levels of love in the Shema, and b'chol miodecha, shu bli gavul mamish, which means that it actually has no limits. You go to a place where you're like, it's like a kamikaze type of experience where you're just ready to give your life for Hashem. You're not limiting and measuring your love based on any type of intellect or calculations, right? Because there's many loves that you could forge based on calculation. So this is a bli gavul, it's bechol miodecha. You're ready to just like get out of this no matter what happens. Like, you know, God forbid, it's like a Mesiras Nefesh. Shu bli gavul mamash shabbat dafka mina hafuch shu achoshech. You only get to that level of bli gavul. You only like start screaming for your life, basically, when someone's chasing after your life. Right? I just had to talk to a friend of ours. Unfortunately, she was in Jerusalem just now, like a couple days ago. I don't know, yesterday. And all of a sudden there's sirens and police and tanks coming down the road. It was like a crazy thing, and everyone's freaking out on the bus. One Haredi guy's like, we have to do tshuva, everyone destroy your smartphones.
No.
And basically what happens, and basically screaming at the top of his lungs like in fear, like really that's like what's bothering him in life. And basically, and so all of a sudden, like they let them off the bus, and she said she ran home. She was running for her life. You know, it turned out, Baruch Hashem, it was a false alarm, but she was running for her life. You understand? When do you run for your life? When are you gonna go?
Run for your life?
Because there was something happened. You know, there's terrorism, there's tanks, there's
Right,
police,
she was running,
there's
but she
sirens.
was scared. Right?
Yeah, she was gonna get out of there. Like first thing first, I'm getting out of here. You know, she got off the bus and ran home for her life. So when do you run for your life? You're going to the mikveh before Chassidus. You're going to run for your life to get to the mikveh before Chassidus.
Right.
You know, you're going to go. It doesn't happen very often that you run for your life. That you would like. Where does the strength come from? You never knew you could run that fast. There's like bli gavul, and that only comes from the darkness. You only get there because something negative is happening. You're running away from something. You don't really ever get that level l'chatchila because you're running towards something. You get it because you're running away from something.
Mm.
And that's where the darkness gives you something that you would never achieve such a level without it. K'moshe kasu tov li malech hachayim. Tov ze malech hachayim. Sorry. So it's as it says in the Gemara, tov, the concept of good, ze malech hachayim. That's the angel of life. Tov me'od ze malech hamaves. What's considered very good? The angels of death, God forbid. That's a strong line right there.
What?
What's good? The angel of life. What's very good? The angel of death. because basically that's what moves a person to tshuva. Shalei hafuch, because through the darkness, the turning, the opposite, as it were, the opposite of good, the choshech davka, and the darkness specifically, shubachinas nefesh abahamis, which is that represents the animal soul, animal tendencies. Yecholim levo lebechinas avas bechol miodecha. That's the only way you can ever come to a level of love at the level of bechol miodecha. So when the soul is above, it can achieve the level of bechol levavecha and bechol nafshecha. But only with an animal soul can it get to the level of bechol miodecha. That does not exist for the souls above. They can't ever see such a love. And again, why the animal soul? I would say for two reasons. One, because it's because of the faults and the disgust that you have in your animal soul, which you only get that you run so intensely. So on one hand, you can only it's due to the animal soul because why? Because it's the fault of the animal soul that makes your godly soul sort of achieve this bichol miodecha, level one, and that's called hiskafia. That's called that you appreciate. Remember, we're going with there's advantage of light from darkness. So let's just stay with the two sort of deeper meanings of that. One is that you only appreciate light when there's darkness around. And that's like this running from death, and that's why the angel of death or the nefesh Bahamas is very good, because you realize how bad it is and you want to run away with all you have. But then there's a higher level, which is b'chol miodecha, which is the notion that you transform the darkness into light. There's an advantage of light from darkness. When darkness gets turned into light, then there's not even a chance for there to be darkness anymore, right?
Bechol miodecha is this level?
Both of these levels are called b'chol miodecha. and where do you see that's connected with the animal soul? Because when the animal soul will actually start to love Hashem, before we were saying the animal soul hates Hashem and you run away from it with you're running for your life. So that's already an advantage. You see the advantage of light because of the darkness. That's level one. Level two is you actually get your animal soul to love Hashem. A transformation of the darkness itself into light. And that's another level of b'chol miodecha, because your animal can love Hashem even more than your godly soul in certain ways, because that animal is stronger than a man. Because an animal doesn't have intellect, which limits his passion. So b'chol miodecha, you understand? It's in two ways basically. Again, it's iskafia and ishapcha, or it's two explanations of advantage of light over darkness.
Wow, usually it is seen as something bad that the animal can do things against its intellect,
and therefore you want to run away from it, and it
but
gives you a b'chol miodecha.
Well, now it's great.
So once you get to that level, you can go higher. That even the animal itself can love Hashem, and that's also b'chol miodecha, because it's basically beyond your intellect. In a certain sense, b'chol levavecha, b'chol nafshecha, and b'chol miodecha is the three levels of heart. Levavecha is midos, nafshecha is intellect, and miodecha is your everything, beyond you, beyond your intellect.
Wow.
So.
Wow, okay, that's great.
Does everyone understand that? With business with the nefesh Bahamas there? Eli?
In between the two levels, which one is Hiskafia, which one is Hizapka?
Hiskafia means to subjugate. Hizhapcha means to transform. So you tell me.
Oh. Okay, well, the transformation of the darkness to light would be Hiskafia.
Hizhapcha. Hizhapcha. That's the last one we talked about, right?
Yeah.
You following this, Dale, everything?
Yeah.
You getting this?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
Plus I have it on tape.
Okay. Shu bli gavul mamish. And the point is that you get to a level where there's literally no more limitations. That cannot be achieved in the higher worlds. Right there, boom. The bli gavul, the level of craziness, essentially, is what is achievable only with the darkness. Through the darkness or with the darkness. Those are the two levels. The Hainu.
What's the gavul of the upper worlds?
The gavul of the upper worlds is that it's a ray.
Oh, right.
And since it's a ray, everything is based on going up level by level, step by step. There's no tshuva. There's no rushing to return to your source, because what's wrong with where you are right now? You're basically sitting in the light. So you love Hashem already. Yeah. But the fact that you love Hashem already is based on the fact that you perceive and understand certain levels of where you are. Each I walked in, I heard someone talking about where do you go after and the afterworld, and someone said it's not one place, and it's very true. There's many places, right? And there's many worlds, there's many chambers, many places. How do you define the difference? There's no space and time over there. So how do you define one place or another? On one hand, it's like a silly question. There's no place. So it depends on perception. That what you perceive is if you perceive more, you're considered, so to speak, higher. If you perceive less, you're lower. You follow me? But the whole thing is based on perception. Olam haba is associated with the world, the sphere of bina, which is a hisbornus, meditating, understanding, grasping. Every level that there is, one angel on a higher level is because they grasp God a little bit more than an angel on a lower level. Why am I stressing this? Because based on their grasp is their love for Hashem. So that's already limited. It's based on their grasp. When we get to the bottom of the barrel, we're not loving Hashem suddenly because we understand Him. We're loving Hashem suddenly because we're running away from evil, and like we're running for our life. Like we don't even know.
Oh.
We're not getting Hashem. We're sort of tapping into some like hidden level of a truth where our whole existence disappears. Where did the meditation that we went on take us? To the point that the ray itself is nullified out of existence inside of the infinite light. So if that's exciting us, it's not our understanding that's exciting us, it's the fact that we don't exist that's exciting us. And that's not something you can grasp. That's something that sort of just takes you out of your own boundaries and makes like a sort of infinite level of arousal.
Is there any souls who so perfect, never come down, that are in higher spiritual worlds, that never come down to a body and get an animal soul?
Well, I mean, again, if you call that perfect, I think it's not perfect.
Well, not perfect in our eyes, but maybe in a higher world, it's a perfection that we can't realize.
No, but the point is that there's definitely many entities that never come into a physical body, angels, etc., etc. But the whole beauty of a soul is that its soul, excuse me the pun here, but its sole purpose is to be in a physical body because it can achieve something that all the higher worlds cannot achieve. Only by being in a physical body can you get to this level of bli gavul. So why would you say that it's more perfect in the higher worlds when you're only dealing with a tiny ray than it is to be in the physical body when you finally have access to the infinite essence of God?
Maybe they're dealing with more than a tiny ray.
You're never dealing with more than a tiny ray when you're up in the higher worlds. The only place to get to that ray is in darkness. To get beyond the ray is in darkness. That's what we're saying. In the light, which is in the ray of light, there is no darkness and there's only a ray. So as perfect as they can be, it's limited. They can never get to an unlimited status. Now when we say limited, there's degrees of limitation. I mean, it's still, Atzilus is even part of that ray. So I mean, it would maybe be considered unlimited compared to where we are now. But again, the analogy is like, so let's say it's a 50 trillion, and we're just one. So it seems unlimited, but it's a limit. Whereas the only place to really tap the gold and get to the true level of unlimitedness is in a body, is in the darkness. So it's much less level of perfection. That's why the souls are like the chosen prize of all creation, the Jewish souls, because they come down here. And you saw what happened in the Bereshis when the angels wanted to come down here. They turned into the Nephilim, they turned into monsters. They started raping everyone and creating giants. They're not able to handle it. They don't have what it takes to basically maintain their connection to Hashem in this place, because we're all officially higher and more connected on this bli gavul level. Okay, so v'hainu lefisha b'shorsha lamay lamayla, and why is this strange deal that the nefesh Bahamas dafka brings you to this unlimited level? It's because in its root, lamay lamayla, way above, shoresh nefesh Bahamas, the root of the animal soul, gavoa yoser, is higher than bechinas nefesh elukis. It's higher than the godly soul in its root. That's why suddenly when you climb into it, it actually takes you higher rather than lower. And where do you see that? Kamosha Kasuv, it says in the actual Chumash, in a encoded way, Ve'ele hamalachim asher malchu, these are the kings that reigned, lifnei malach melech lebnei Yisrael. Before there reigned a king amongst the Bnei Yisrael. Who's it talking about? Yeah, the kings of Edom, the kings of Esav, they ruled the world before, basically, Shaul HaMelech was the first king. They were the rulers of the world for the generations before. So you see that they came before Bnei Israel. They represent the Esav represents the animal soul, and therefore physically it mirrored its spiritual counterpart. That just like above, they're above us, they precede us. So to here, they preceded us in time, that they have a higher source. They reigned on the earth before Bnei Israel. Shu b'chinish nefesh elokis. The Bnei Israel is of course the nefesh elokis. Rak she'al yidei shvirus hakelim. So if they're higher, then why are they wicked and disgusting and dark? Because through the shvirus hakelim, because of the shattering of the vessels up there, naflu lamata mata, they fell very low. Meaning to say that they're on such a high level that basically their level could not be contained in vessels. It couldn't be graspable. It was ingraspable. The idea of kedusha, everything in Torah, the nefesh elokis, everything is in a measure, right? The Torah is those 5 books. You know, every mitzvah has particulars which limit it to this. Even tzedakah, you shouldn't give more than a fifth. Every carbon, every sacrifice, it has to be a male, it has to be this age, it has to be this. Everything is mamash in measure. That's the whole inyan of Torah. Because kedusha is that thing where godliness specifically wants to reveal itself, and therefore it minimizes itself to fit into like constructs which can stay whole and allow the light to come in and show itself. So everything has a limit. But there's an unlimited level of godliness which no vessel can hold. You can't show it because you'd have to create some kind of a kli in order to put it in so that it can be seen, right? If something doesn't have a vessel, it can't show itself. The idea of a vessel is basically your vehicle of revelation. You follow that? Your soul could exist and walk around this earth even, but without a body, it can't be seen. It can't reveal its powers. So you need a vessel to come into to basically... So the level of tohu, which is what we're talking about, the level of godliness, which is where the nefesh habahamis comes from, it's so high that it defies being put into any vessel. And therefore, when it was put into a certain vessel, the vessel shattered, because no vessel can handle such a light. And the shattering of that vessel came down and created what? Everything in this world, except for Jews. So everything in this world, therefore, is basically physicality, that is. All physicality has in it a remnant of this infinite light, which is beyond limitation. And that's why, basically, when you look around this world, everything is sort of separate in a way that it's unable to come together. All the nations, they're like constantly warring with each other, and there's a sort of opposition and unwillingness to become one, right? Everyone, like, so we talked about it when we learned the mimer of Midian. Everybody wants to basically stay at odds with each other. All the animals, they're all fighting for themselves. There's no concept of like truly living together for the sake of like harmony.
Right. Someone
else is going to try and destroy that harmony and take it for themselves. Right? There's like a warring nature to the whole world, and that's because it's lights which refuse to be contained all as one. Whereas Bnei Israel, we're like peacemakers. All we want to do is everyone should live together. 12 tribes, there's room for everybody in this land. Right? But really, it's because we have a limited level of light. And since the light was limited, therefore, each one allows himself to have his own personal boundaries, which gives the other person room, and we can all live together in harmony. So really, we're lower. But the only thing is that when it comes out in a physical way, the higher thing is very corrupt. Because it knows no boundaries, it becomes like a monster, and it becomes the source of all evil.
Like the angels.
If we don't come from
right?
If we don't come from Torah, then where do we come from?
Tikkun, Atzilus. Tohu is like a world above Atzilus, and Tikkun is the world of Atzilus. That's where we come from. Now, don't get all worried. The truth is that that's not our ultimate source. We actually come from a higher place even than Tohu and Tikkun, the ultimate source of the Jew. And this is also a beautiful thing, that you might think that since we're able to be put in vessels, this goes back to our kind of continuous conversation, since we're able to be put in vessels, so as I said, we're limited. So they're higher than us because they're unlimited. So that's not really the case. The truth of the matter is that the essence, there's no problem being unlimited, has no problem being limited.
Right.
And on the contrary, it's more of a chiddush that the essence can be limited than being unlimited, because of course the essence is unlimited. That's like a sort of casual expression of the essence. But the fact that the essence can find exact parameters, it doesn't even make sense, which can reveal something infinite and essential, that's already like super crazy power of the essence. So the fact that we actually represent the limitation of God doesn't mean that we're on a lower stage. It means that we really, Atzilus or Tikkun is ultimately rooted even in a higher place than Tohu is. So what it comes down to is like this, basically. You have Tohu and Tikkun. So Tohu is higher than Tikkun, but it's like a mirror. And then, look, right? Let's do the whole thing. Tohu is higher than Tikkun. But when they fall into this world, then what came from Tohu is lower than what's in Tikkun, because the Jews basically are good guys, right? And all the things in the world are evil. So there's like a flip. So the same is true the other way around, basically. That here's Tohu and here's Tikkun, but in its root, it's like the other way around. That in the root, Tohu is an expression of the external aspect of God, and Tikkun is an expression of the internal aspect of God.
Right. Then they get their nurture from the klippas and like
Right.
the horaim and like all this
Right.
stuff.
Why? Because because there's a certain level of infinity in Hashem, which since He's so infinite, He doesn't care if you do good. There's no such thing as good or bad. So
Right.
therefore, bad can live just as much as good can.
Exactly. Right, that's the difference. That's the thing you remember. I was telling you about like the etzem. That was the difference between you were like. So how can it be unlimited and limited at the same time? Like it's unlimited because it's blik wool like a high etzem, but it's limited because it cannot be limited. It cannot be limited. It's like its nature is to be unlimited. If it wants to be limited, it can't. While on Hashem, it's like can be limited and limited can do everything. Yeah. That was like the point. You know what I'm saying?
Benjamin,
Yeah, that's what I like.
we're watching you, baby.
That's great.
All right, so as it says, these are the kings that reigned before there reigned a king amongst Bnei Israel. That's talking about the Tohu being higher than Tikkun, the Nefesh Bahamas being higher than the godly soul. It's just that because of the Shviras HaKelim, the shattering of the vessel, rather, so that higher level which couldn't be contained wind up falling in a way where it can't be contained in a negative way. They can't come together and forge unity. So that becomes the klippas. Mata. Kamosha Kasuv, and where do you see that? In the Chumash. It says V'yimloch v'yamas. It says about all those kings that they successively reigned and they died. They reigned and they died. The idea of reigning is that they were like this massive, awesome power. They died because as soon as another power came into existence, there was no room for two of them in the world. So they died means they fell, they came out of their source and turned into klippas. But in their root, they're much higher than the godly soul. So really, Dafka, a Jew wants to come out of that world, right? Based on what we're saying now, Jews are diving down to get into these bodies, because the body is the only way for them to access the level of Tohu.
Not consciously.
Who said?
Anyone remember consciously making that choice?
I mean, maybe. Yeah, I mean, we're much more consciously in your body is different than making the choice consciously when you actually have the choice to make. Now you have no choice to make. You're not making that choice right now. You made that choice when you came into a body. So your consciousness at that time is not available to you right now.
We don't remember.
And forgetfulness
Don't remember.
is like a fog that if we were conscious, we made that choice. Coming in this world, is forgetfulness covered it over. So I can't remember.
Of course not. The whole idea of coming into this world, it covers over.
That's a big.
It covers over every aspect of your previous experience. No question about it. That's the whole point we're making. But you're running to get into that situation, to the darkness, because there's tohu there. And that's something that you will never have up there. It's a b'chol miodecha. V'lezos gam kamosha naf lamata, and therefore, even when they fall down here below, so they're in their like less than good state, to say the least, yeshlem tagvuros al hanefesh elokis. they still can be recognizable in them a certain overpowering of the godly soul, over the godly soul. Right? An animal is stronger than a man. Simple as that, right? And your animal soul is stronger than your godly soul, it says. If it wasn't that God helped you in this battle, you would lose every time. Because your animal soul has a certain koach, because it comes from a higher source, that it's basically, you're no match for it. It's infinite, it's bli gavul. Right? So, there's a certain overpowering, it overpowers the nefesh elokis, mipnei sheshorsham hu b'chinas melucha, shu b'chinas hisnasus. And why? Because their source comes from the level of melucha, the level of kingship, because we said they're indicated by the spheros of they reigned and they died. They were the kings of Edom. So they come from their whole inyan is a level of malchus. That's why they want to raise themselves up over everything. Each one considers themselves to be the only one, the king of the world. The problem is when you have a few of those people at the same time, you get a shattering. But intrinsically, a king has this business of just winning, as we said many times, right? A king has the netzach. A true king, he'll give his life to win, which is so they have that. Your nefesh of Bahamas has that. It has more of a like a sort of zealotry than your godly soul. Your godly soul is like a timid, happy to serve God and tremendous love and everything, but it's not like a winner in that sense. You know, you're because it comes out. It's kind of a klippa type of attitude to overcome someone else. Truth is that it comes together beautifully when your godly soul grabs onto that midah of your animal soul, and then it can win for God. Right? In this world, it's like a Rebbe, like a king of Israel. He's like going to go fight the wars of Hashem. But really, he gets that midah from being in a body. He gets that from like grabbing onto a certain tohu energy. And it's known, by the way, that David represents an Indian of tohu in his own right. David comes from the Moabites. He comes from klippas. Right? He's like built out from both his mother and his father from like a weird relationship. Yehuda and Tamar on one side, where there was like some funny business going on over there, and Ruth and Boaz on the other side. So he's just like made of klippa, basically. But this is his thing. Like he's got that midah of bli gavul from the klippas. So that's the meaning of hisnasus. Hisnasus means to raise yourself up over somebody. And they have that. Therefore the animal soul is higher. V'gam ha'adam, and also the man, mekabel chayos m'chinas behemus, u'maychlim, we also get a certain life force, right? We live from the animal kingdom and from the food that we eat therein. U'biladam einu yachol l'chayos, and without them we can't live. In other words, to a certain, also the growing kingdom, which is ultimately even higher than the animal. But he's saying that from this level of the growing is like even more of a shattering, right? It goes lower. So we get our life force from them. Not only are they stronger than us, the animals, but we literally can't live without them. We eat them. And they are literally the source of our life in this world. So, and again, if you want to say the plant kingdom, same deal. How the plant kingdom was just part of the shattering as well. So the fact that we literally get our life force, we cannot exist without these lower forms of reality, clearly shows that they're a higher form of reality. They're a higher force of life. It's just that they've fallen into this state that they're not able to express themselves as they truly are. Instead, they express themselves as fragmented,
I get the animals because they like attack each other, but what about plants?
It's the same idea. The idea is that they're a world. In other words, plants also have a jungle mentality.
Yeah, they start to like spread around. And
happy to overtake you. In other words, if I'm like a certain species of plant, like get out of my way. Basically, it's predators in the plant kingdom as well.
Exactly.
Right.
A different way, but they do it also. It's true.
Sure. Everybody like looking out for themselves, basically.
Exactly.
It's interesting.
All right, they do it when the sun only hits a part of the forest. They all get like, and then the ones down there die because like they're just like okay. Fair enough.
Masha'en kain hamaychlim. Whereas we require them to live on, but not so them. The food Einam tzrichim el adam. They don't need us at all. They'd be totally happy without us. They existed before us. We were created after them. They don't need us. The kol zevim nesha b'shorah shorsham l'mayla, and all this because in their root above, hem gavoim harbeh. They're much higher b'chinas hanashamas, from the level of the souls. V'lezos al yedei yiridas v'hislavshus nefesh elokis b'nefesh bahamas, and therefore al yedei through yiridas v'hislavshus, the descent and the enclothement of the godly soul into the animal soul, dafka lasok b'tirdos v'machshavas aparnas, to get all lost and go get busy doing burdening matters of parnasa and take your mind off of God and start dealing with the laundromat. Dafka through that, binyanim gashmim, in the laundromat, it's higher than a Jewish soul. The darkness comes from a higher source than the light. So the souls are basically consciously interested, whatever you want to say, they're basically racing to get down there, because in that place there's some sense that they have that it's an aliyah. It's not a yerida. Like we always talk about, there's two ways of looking about it. You can say it's in a yerida, and then eventually I'll go higher from that. But the real way of looking at it is that why are they going down? Because going down is going up. The very process of getting into that darkness is they're rushing to get to the remainders and the imprint of tohu, which is specifically found down there. They can't get it up there. They're not invited. Tohu remains a world totally distinct from Tikkun. Tikkun is not allowed to go up into Tohu. It is no invitation to there. Where does it have an invitation? To the Tohu that's found below. The Tohu that's broken, Tikkun is invited to go fix it. So he's allowed to go and clothe himself into it at that level. So he's running after the holy highness of Tohu. The only place he can get to it is down there.
Wow.
So it's an aliyah l'chatchila, it's an aliyah.
Wow.
It just looks like darkness because that stuff is weird stuff.
But then it seems to stop when it gets to the body, though, kind of. Partly, I mean, like, we don't go purposely to, like, I don't know.
No, you eat, which means
Right.
you are completely bound up the second you're born with requiring lower forms of life in order to feed you. So on the contrary, it doesn't stop with your body. You go right into the you go right into the world. Right? And you need it. And what? You're just going to go find your food from a tree? No, you got to go work and you got to go get lost to find the food, you know? So it requires you right away. It's like the first descent is into the body and then right away into the world. And it's not a descent. It's mamish, there's gold in there. And you want it.
And why is it then not like going deeper and deeper and deeper in that
You
level?
do go deeper and deeper and deeper, yeah.
In which way?
That's the Indian of Shlichus. You could stay in Crown Heights and live by the Rebbe and hear my marim from the mouth of the tzaddik every second, but the Rebbe says, go to Japan where there's nobody over there. That's going deeper. And when you're in Japan itself, by the way, don't just sit in your Chabad house. Go into the darkest streets. Okay, Al Pi Torah, we're still tikkun. We're not allowed to transgress our mandate, which is that we can't do things with this world, which is contrary to the Jewish soul. We have a soul, and the soul is allowed into certain places, not allowed into other places. Every place it's allowed, we got to go. That's why there's Jews right now in every single strange, weird, pushed off corner of the world. Because as long as we're allowed in there, we got to go in there.
Right.
Are we saying us is just an aliyah because it's going to help us appreciate the light more?
Wow.
That's stage one. In other words, that, yes, you can only appreciate the light. But again, what light do you begin to appreciate? You don't only appreciate the light of the ray, you appreciate the light of the source of the ray. That's stage one, though, that the darkness is something you want to get away from because now you can really appreciate what light is because you're in such a dark place. Yes, that's stage one. That's called iskafia. You got to start there. But stage two is something even higher. You get to the point where you realize that you take the animal and you actually make the animal serve God, in which case you're now serving God with a material which is greater than your godly soul, and you're about tshuva. In other words, the things that the worldly things which you were running away from, you can use those things to serve God, and you're now like owning, so to speak, this level of tohu, and it's a bli gavul in a sense that you're now wielding the power of bli gavul. You're not just running away from its negative connotations, you're actually utilizing its positive connotations. So that's Yisruna or Mina Choshech. That's the third explanation of it, or the second one that we've been talking about today. That's the idea that there's an advantage of light, literally, that comes from darkness. That when you turn darkness into light, it's the highest level.
Like a smartphone?
Like a smartphone. right? That's a perfect example. The Haredi guy, he's living in a certain world where he clearly doesn't learn Hasidus. Not to say that smartphones are not potentially the most dangerous things in the planet, but they're also potentially the most awesome things in the planet. So when you're in a state of tshuva and your line is, everyone throw off your smartphone, you're obviously holding by stage one, right? Whereas in a certain sense, you could be there. I honestly, a proper approach, like this happened to me. Like I was in the middle of something, and there was like a sort of a weighty type of thing that was. I pulled out my smartphone and pulled up the Tanya right away. I started getting into the Tanya. It's right there. You can utilize these things like where if I was on a bus, I would have a Sefer Tanya. Not necessarily, but So in other words, that's the difference right there. The guy is 100% right. You got to run away from the evil of the world, and only when the world is now filled with this disgusting smartphones everywhere, you can realize like the good old days when you didn't have them, and you're going to run back, and that's sort of realizing the light by running from the darkness. Or like the Rebbe's idea, you're going to go ahead and take all the things over and conquer the world. That's the end of Mashiach. Mashiach conquers the world. He takes them and uses their languages and their clothes and their businesses and everything to serve Hashem with, not running away from them.
How does this apply to non-Jewish people?
They can basically...
Meaning, can they continue to exist without us? Just like the other forms of physicality?
Theoretically, everything existed without, so to speak, the man. But it was only created because man was going to be put there. So in other words, yes, in a theoretical world, they don't need us to exist in the sense that they already have a higher level. But in reality, they would never have been put into existence if we weren't first in mind to be sent to refine them and fix them up. So that's what it says in the beginning. Bereshis, the whole heavens and earth, is only there to forward the concept of Jews and Torah in the world. Two things that are called Reshis.
But theoretically, they're just part of the clockwork of the world, the way it works. And without us being there, the world would function. Without Jewish people, physically.
There was animals before there was man.
Okay, so I'm saying the Goyim are...
They're in the animal kingdom, basically. In a nice way, I mean, it doesn't sound too nice, but I'm saying they're not neshamas. They don't come from the Olam HaTikun. They only look like man, but they're not officially man. As it says in the Torah, Atem kroim Adam. You are called Adam, meaning the Jews. Only we are called Adam. That name Adam applies to only Jews. The Frierdiker Rebbe says, okay, it's on record, what can I tell you? The Frierdiker Rebbe says that if it wasn't in order to give Jews free choice, Goyim would walk on fours. Because they're not officially, I mean, they might be geniuses, like they might be able to build bridges on walking on fours, but they're not officially like the coma of man where your head is above your heart and so forth. The whole idea of like being in the image of God in that way, that's something which applies specifically to Jews.
So with that said, since we're the ones who dictate the outcome of the world and the situation of the world, our actions and what we do, since we're human and they're just part of the lower kingdoms, then that could also mean to say that now that things are so messed up, the world would actually be a better place if Jewish people weren't involved with it right now.
No, meaning to say that where they fall...
They'd be functioning like nature.
No, nature eats itself alive, basically. It's not like a Gan Eden type of nature. In other words, nature is one war, another war. Like, what was the nature before the Jews had a king? What was going on? They had one kingdom of Edom came after the next, and one swallowed the other alive.
Dog eat dog.
Dog eat dog. That's what it would be. You can call it like the harmony of Mother Nature, or you can call it the jungle and the ferocity of the jungle. It doesn't work harmoniously.
A forest works harmoniously.
In terms of the fact
Even though
that
there's competition.
okay, but that's what you call harmoniously is not a level of like Gan Eden. It's a level of gullus. It's a level, in other words, in Gan Eden, animals didn't fight with each other. Plants did not overcome another person's space. Every basically, kingdom appreciated everybody else's kingdom. There was a harmony. There was a perfection. This, what we have now, you could say, okay, it's not going to necessarily, I don't know. It's not going to cease to exist.
Is better than what we have now. That form of harmony.
No, in other words, the form of harmony that we have now, if like, so to speak, the Jews weren't here, you would just have a continuous state of madness. The Jews being here since the beginning of time is an attempt to put order to this madness. Now the truth is, you might not see it with your eyes, and I might not see it with my eyes. But the Rebbe said that it's not gone in vain. For thousands of years, it's a cumulative effect of putting order to this madness. The world is in much better shape today, although it doesn't necessarily seem like it because we're at the very end of time, so it's like the death throes of the clippers. They're coming out with like the last everything they have. But essentially, we've organized the whole world. It just looks like they're going mad all of a sudden because they're about to die. So they're kicking and screaming, and that's what you're seeing suddenly. Yeah. But the truth is that we've organized the entire world. The world has basically become, except for some lunatics, the world is basically a perfect place because of the Jewish people's effect on it through Torah mitzvahs over 4,000, 5,000 years. So it's not, and the whole thing is anyway a theoretical conversation because again, the entire world would not be put into existence if it wasn't that the Jews were meant to do this process. Hashem wouldn't want just a world without Jews. He wouldn't have made it. But certainly that's what the Goyim think. They think we're better off without you guys because basically all you guys want to do is put us into categories. You go here, you go here. I'm much more happy. Let me be a billionaire. I don't mind swallowing everybody else in the world.
You can't understand the end result though. That's
right. That's the point. They don't see the true oneness of it. They're only in their like sort of limited state where the more I get, the better I am. So we're saying no, you can only have that much. So that just like blows their kalim. What do you mean I can only have that much? I come from Tohu. There's an unlimited end. There's no to my desires. You cannot do that to me, right? So we're saying you can only access that through the realms of the Torah. In other words, we also get to a sort of state of unlimitedness. We also use the animal, but you have to use it by first obeying the rules, and then you'll see that if you funnel that energy in through the Torah, it will also create a state of unlimitedness. They don't want the rules. They don't want. That's why Hashem gave them and offered them all the Torah. They said no, we're good. We'll just take the unlimitedness as it is, even though it's going to destroy everybody. That's fine with us. Whereas we obeyed, we're ready to be like sort of dominated by everybody for a second. It was in yesterday's Chumash, Tanya. There's a time where man will dominate man to the second man's own detriment. In other words, being dominated by these forces ultimately is very bad for them. Because it allows us to get into them and take them over like from the insides. Which is what's been happening the whole of history.
MS.
Okay.
Shahu, no.
Okay. Just last line to the period here. So it's because why are we running to get into these bodies? Because the source of them is much higher than the souls, and through descending and investing the nefesh elokis into the nefesh habahamas dafka to get involved in tirdus machshavos haparnasa, in the burdens and thoughts of parnasa, b'inyanim gashmim, in these physical, strange, detached matters. Shema nikroi mayim rabim, and that's called the flood waters. Hanal. Only through that can you come to a state of true infinite love. You can't get there if you stay in yeshiva your whole life. Which is, again, sort of like, it doesn't come easy, but eventually if you learn enough Chassidus, you want to run away from yeshiva.
What's the floodwaters?
The floodwaters is basically being engrossed with the physical matters. Going into the body first of all, and then having to deal with eating and acquiring your food and thinking about the jungle and getting out there and dealing with ridiculous things. All that is where the sparks of tohu are found. So from there you're gonna raise yourself up to a level b'chol miodecha. You could never do it on an organized sort of simple path of staying in the light. Okay, Chevra. I mean, we have only a little bit to go, but we'll save it for tomorrow.
How much more do you have to go?
In the whole mimer?
Yeah.
I mean, let's say we'll take it to this black dot, even though it's not officially the end of the mimer. So that would be on the next page, like another 30 lines or something.
Okay. I'm running out of notebook here.
Nice. I want to get you one of these books like this in front of you soon.
Yeah.